Great. So tonight is question and answer. I was just telling everybody here to give me your best questions, or just any question, something that's not about how do I throw a front punch or how do I do a pivot. So most of the questions, the vast majority of the stuff that you guys give me is specifically about meditation, and that's fine. This is a meditation class, but also you can ask me about anything else. So I already have a great question from Zane. Go ahead and give it to us, sir.
Okay, so recently I've noticed some rigidity in my body.
Getting tense?
A little bit, but also movement-wise, it doesn't feel quite as good as it could be. And so I thought about yoga. If that is a good route to go on for both physical and spiritual purposes.
Yes, got it. So asking about yoga, and I think part of your question is how does that complement what we do here? And is it going to help you get more fluid and less rigid? So I am not an expert in yoga. I do a lot of yoga stretches, but I've been to precisely 3 yoga classes in my life. Well, 4 if you count the seminar that Reverend Kelly did for us back in Michigan. So I guess 4. And I would say that I enjoy yoga. I think that it's very beneficial, and I think that I should do more of it. I think that you guys should too, if you can make it work for your schedule and everything. The rigidity part, I'm not sure how much it's going to help, because a lot of yoga is holding poses, and it sounds like what you need is a little bit more like Tai Chi. So you're already doing Tai Chi, so that's good. Pay attention to that specifically, making sure that all of your movement is fluid, making sure that you are as relaxed as possible within the posture, and being able to move constantly every part of your body that's supposed to be moving. But yoga is certainly helpful. You want to be generally flexible. Yoga is also great at building up strength and core strength. So we use all that stuff when we practice. When I went to yoga, I did some hot yoga classes, which were really fun. I love hot yoga the 2 times that I did it, because I work certain muscles a lot, and all the kicking and stuff that we do here, stuff has a tendency to get pretty tense. And even though I stretch a lot, I still need more. And so I feel like the hot yoga was very useful to just help me relax my body into it a little bit more. I also thought, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I'm the only person here who's actually able to balance doing all this weird stuff. I'm sure that I was doing plenty wrong, but my experience was, since what we do in some cases is working on balance and flexibility and coordination, I feel like it's similar enough that you'd be pretty good at it. And I'm sure that yoga would also help you be better at some of the stuff that we do here. So the spiritual side of it, a lot of people don't know this, but the legendary founder of Kung Fu and all martial arts was a yogi from India, Yogananda. No, not Yogananda. Yogananda is a different yogi from India. Bodhidharma came from India and went to China and started off basically like a very rudimentary physical practice, but a very rich spiritual, philosophical practice. And when he came to the monks at Shaolin Temple, it was kind of that synthesis of both body and mind that created martial arts, what we do today. And it's very different, but it has all evolved from that. So the root, I would say, the philosophical, the spiritual root of what we do is yoga, is that Eastern philosophy. And it is, like I said, it has evolved, but it's got enough similarities that most of the stuff that you would encounter, if the person who's teaching is actually getting into the deeper parts of it, which I think is fairly rare. These days, most people are going to yoga to stretch, and they're not really interested in any of the rest of it. But if you get a good teacher, and it's unfortunately even way worse in martial arts. There's nobody out there who's teaching the spiritual side of it except for us and Steve Brown and a very few other people. But if you find a teacher who's not afraid to talk about that stuff, who understands it, who is willing to bring that into the practice, then absolutely great. I would say that the vast majority of it is going to be very similar and will complement what we do very well. And getting more flexible is always going to be helpful. And you're only, how old, 16? 17? Oh, well, you're an old man now, so it's okay that you're not flexible anymore. Other question. Sir.
What is a better feeling for you, when you punch someone or when you avoid the punch?
That's a good question. I'm going to say that fits into a meditation class. What's better? What feels better for me? When I punch somebody or when I don't get punched? I'm going to make this a little bit like more general and deep, but this is a way to look at our practice. The physical practice that we have kind of mirrors the internal part of our practice. Our internal state, our mental state is very important. And if you are, rigid or tense, there's probably some rigidity and tension going on with your mind. And if you are, not breathing well and you're not able to stay calm and focused, then your body is going to respond in a similar way. It's not going to do what you want it to do. And on some level, all of what we're doing is based on recognizing what's going on within us. So the experience of punching somebody versus getting punched is obviously, on one hand, it can feel better to punch somebody than it feels to get punched yourself, or to, miss when you're punching somebody. And it can feel better to move out of the way of getting punched than it feels to get punched by somebody. And we have to recognize that. Some stuff feels good. It feels, I get all pumped up and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting better at this. And some stuff feels bad. And all of that is ego. So when I say ego, I mean the part of you that feels, really great when you do something great and feels really bad when you do something bad, but also any part of you that is separate from anybody else. So the ego is there. It's a fact. It is reality. Ignoring it and pretending that it doesn't exist is not going to make it go away in most circumstances. It's like if you walk into practice and you just say to yourself, I don't have an ego, you're going to prove yourself wrong as soon as you punch somebody or as soon as you get punched, because you're going to have something that clicks on inside of you. You're going to have something that feels really good or feels really bad, and that's totally fine. You want to have that experience because that is an opportunity to deal with the ego, to recognize the ego, and then we go to work on letting it go. So for me, I try to feel the same whether I'm punching somebody or they're punching me. I try to feel the same, whether I'm punching somebody or I'm getting out of the way of somebody else's punch, because that means that if I feel the same about whatever happens, that means that my ego is not involved in that moment. I try to celebrate when my partner does something really great. My partner nails me with something, my partner, taps me or gets something, a great technique on me, I can still celebrate that with my partner. And that's like that connection that we build with ourselves and our partners is a great way to, at least for a moment, let the ego go and get beyond that. But if I'm being very real with myself, sometimes it feels great when I don't get hit, and it feels bad when I do get hit. I would say that it's about even for me what feels good about landing a punch on somebody versus moving out of the way. Now, when I started off my practice, I did not like hitting people. It felt bad to hit somebody because I hit them and I go, oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. And on some level, I feel bad about the physical pain that they feel. On some level, for me, the thing that has been even harder over the years to get beyond is just wanting people to like me. And when you punch somebody, they don't like you sometimes. So if you're able to get out of the way, that's really nice, and that has always felt great for me. And when I get punched in the head, that still oftentimes does not feel good. but I can still, at the very least on a philosophical level, I can appreciate it. And when I'm practicing and I'm doing it right, I'm in the right state of mind, then I can experience it all the same. When it's me and my partner sparring, it doesn't matter who's winning or losing, it all feels good, it all feels right. And that's because we're connecting to the energy that we're creating together, rather than it's this person versus this person and who's winning or who's losing. Other question? Yes, ma'am.
This question is about the ego. How do you relate to others when you realize, well, they're in an egoic state? Sometimes you can realize it and then you can interact with them in a higher state. But sometimes, how do you prevent relating to someone at an egoic state from your ego to that conscious collision?
Oh yeah, that's difficult. So I recognize that somebody else is really in the ego state right now. They are all about me versus you. We're very separate. And how do I deal with them without myself getting dragged into that? And I'll do my best to break down this process. So one of the first things that I like to do is, like when I'm driving and somebody cuts me off, and the first reaction, the gut reaction is, what the hell are you doing? And I want to like speed up and cut them off. That used to be what I actually did. And now, since I've thought about it and worked on it for so long, now what I do is I get that gut reaction and then I say, oh, wait a minute. I've done that before. I've been that person who's in a hurry, who's not thinking about anybody else. And maybe there's something very serious and pressing going on in their life and they've got to get someplace. I always think maybe there's a pregnant lady in the car. But if, they're going to go give birth right now. So I like to relate to the ego state that they're at by recognizing, even if I'm in, let's be honest, we mostly spend our days in some form of an ego state. It's like if somebody's having a conversation with me while I'm meditating, great, I'm not in the ego state. But besides that, there's at least a twinge of it, usually. So I recognize that I have been there, and then I can kind of empathize with them, and then I go at it from a place of non-judgment, which is so important, to accept that person exactly how they are, exactly where they are in this moment, and to realize, hey, if I caught them on a different day, in a different situation, they might be in a totally great mood, they might be in a much higher state, but I'm going to give them some slack right now because I know that I've been there too. If I've been there, it's okay if they're there now. So that's important, to come at it from a place of non-judgment. And of course, like the more time you spend and the stronger that ego state is, the more this person is likely to drag you into it. So you want to try to do something about it very quickly. And when I say do something about it, I don't mean it in the way that most people are probably going to take that. I don't mean get into the conversation and like shut them down really fast. That's what most people try to do in some kind of a situation like that. I mean like very quickly get yourself into that place where you are empathizing with them, where you are recognizing, okay, I've felt this way before, and I can allow myself to stay in a more centered place while dealing with them, with that quick recognition and with the recognition that, hey, if I'm not careful, I'm going to get dragged into that same kind of emotional state. And it's kind of like when we practice in meditation. If you sit and you are in an ego state, or you are very much just feeling, the aches and pains of your body, something is going to cause you to have a pretty bad meditation very early on. Something's going to start hurting, something's going to start itching, you're going to start to think, I've got to go do this, I've got to stop meditation so I can go do that. But if you sit down and you immediately lock it down, and that's what Steve Brown and Ms. Donahue like to say about it. You sit down and it's just like, I go, that's it. Then you are going to be much better able to deal with that stuff. In fact, it might not even show up for you. So if you can bring your consciousness and your energy within, your awareness, to that centered place, then it's no longer in the body. It's no longer up here thinking about all the stuff that you need to do. You're just there with the breath. And I think you can do the same thing when you go into a conversation with somebody. You really lock down your own emotional state. You get it where you want to be. And as soon as you recognize, oh, I'm starting to drift over here to where they are, I just come right back to center. And it could be focusing on your breath. It could be just like taking yourself out of the equation. This is something that I love to do when I remember to do it and when I can pull it off. It's incredible when you have a conversation with somebody and you are actually just there listening to them without making it about you at all. If it's not about you, you won't get dragged into that ego state. It's them, it's this person, and it's their ego or it's their whatever kind of state they're in, and I'm just there like witnessing it. So if you can allow yourself to witness, if you can allow yourself to, there's a super woo-woo thing that everyone in LA loves to say, holding space for somebody. If you can just be there and allow them to be exactly the way that they are, then you're set. You're not going to get dragged into it. This book that Tanya recommended me, what is it called? Consolations? Yeah, it's great. The chapter on friendship talks about this. He says that friendship, I'm going to paraphrase and do a terrible job, but friendship is about witnessing. It's not about like making somebody else, not even about making somebody else grow or like trying to make them better in any way. It's literally just being there and witnessing. And I spent my last weekend with probably my oldest friend ever, Tina. She lives in New Jersey, and I used to live there years and years ago, and we're still great friends. And Tina is a very emotional person. She is like this, and there were years where she would call me to cry and complain about somebody at 3 a.m, and I'd answer the phone and I'd sit here like this. And I would sometimes I'd try to give her advice and tell her what to do, but sometimes I was too tired and I just sat there and listened, and sometimes I would fall asleep. But I'm just like a witness. I'm just being there. And that's kind of how you get through all of these ups and downs, with your life, with somebody else's life, with your relationship together, is just be a witness for it without having to make it go any certain way. You're just there for whatever shows up. That's my advice for today. Other question? Yes, ma'am.
I was reading one of the books off front by Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm.
One of the quotes, one thing he said in there was something about rather than reacting to a situation, merge with it.
Mm-hmm.
In the situation itself, and finding the solution. And you can expand on that a little bit.
Sure. So instead of reacting to the situation, merging with the situation, this is, for example, come here, Mr. Roach. Let's see if we can do this, and then you'll have to put me back in the frame over here. So this is like when the punch is coming, I see the punch, it's a looping punch, and I react to it by doing this, versus I see the punch coming, and I merge with it by doing that, right? So thank you, sir. Go make sure that I'm in frame. So merging is, first of all, very difficult, high level. When you talk about what we do in martial arts, it is one of the hardest things to do, is to be able to, you're so sensitive and so relaxed that you're able to merge completely with your partner's energy versus having to stop it or even getting out of the way, which is a really great way to deal with it, but not as good as merging. So it is a couple of different things. I would say, well, let me see. Why would it be beneficial, first of all? So it's beneficial because you get to use the energy that the attacker is giving you rather than stopping it and having to use your own energy. Reaction in any situation is kind of like that. When you react, you're using your own energy, and it also has this kind of like a clunky feeling to it. Like when you hard block somebody's punch, well, you didn't get punched in the face, which is nice, But you did get punched in the arm, which is not the best thing that could have happened there. Better than that would be I merge with it, and I'm able to steer and play with the energy, and it has a much kind of like a lighter, fun feeling to it. You know, this way of going through life, instead of reacting to everything, merging with everything, is just going to be a lot less stressful, and you will be a lot more effective, I would say. And it is very difficult to be able to do that. So don't expect to just go out there after this talk and I'm just going to merge with everything. You're probably going to get hit when you try to merge with it instead of reacting. Oftentimes, if you're not good enough, you get hit by the punch, you get hit by the situation that you're in. So be aware of that. But if you drag that attitude into it and you're afraid of getting hit, that'll stop you from trying to merge with it. So just merge with it. And when you get hit sometimes, just get back up and try again, and you'll eventually get it. So I would say that this comes from a place of, again, kind of like back to the ego, not separating yourself. If I'm going to successfully merge with my partner, whether it's physical practice, a punch coming in, or it's a conversation, like I want it to be like verbal push hands or emotional push hands where my partner's energy is coming and I'm turning it and I'm pushing it back, but it's not me versus them. It's this that we're playing with. So we got to be relaxed. We've got to be sensitive. We've got to, most importantly, recognize that this is not me separate from my partner or separate from the situation as a whole. It doesn't even have to be with another person. It could be with anything, any situation. We are on some level one with all of this stuff, not just the other people on the planet and not just the animals, but the rocks and the sun and the whatever. Everything is all part of the same. So when we can get that on a deeper level, we can experience it in the moment, then it becomes a lot easier to merge with the situation. I'll give you a great example. Back to traffic. So you can sit in traffic and you can have the experience of reacting to being in traffic, and you can just react over and over and over and over again. And you have been in the car with somebody who's driving that way. It's not very fun. It's like speeding up and stopping, speeding up and stopping, and getting anxious and getting angry about it. Or you can merge with the traffic. One of my favorite things to do, actually, is I read an article at some point about like how traffic jams start, and they said like a ton of them start because of people who are speeding up and stopping, and then that just messes everybody else behind them. So I'm thinking I'm going to be the person who gets this traffic jam to disintegrate, if not for me, for everybody else behind me. And so I try to merge as smoothly as I can. I take it away from this speed up and slow, speed up and stop. I take it to this, and it's like I'm really trying to even out what I'm doing. So that's a fun, kind of simple example of this, but you could do that in any situation where you are really taking away this separation and allowing yourself to feel and truly be part of the greater whole. So I don't know if that's what Eckhart Tolle was talking about or not, but that's what I'm talking about. It seems to work sometimes. Any other question? Go, Joey. Taking a break from practice inside the dojo. You don't mean how do I take a break from practice when I am in the dojo? No. Is that what you mean?
Not being here, how do you end practice here and still sustain it outside?
Okay, you talking about if you quit, or are you talking about, no, you would never quit. Okay. So, I'm trying to sustain my practice outside of the dojo without being able to be in the dojo as much or at all. I experienced this because when I moved from Michigan, where's Michigan? This way? When I moved from Michigan, I came here and I stayed with my parents for 6 months while I was trying to figure out where am I going to put the school, how is all this going to work. I did not have anybody to practice with for the majority of that time. I went back and visited once when I took my Black Sash test, and I practiced a little bit with a friend of mine who was here, but for the most part, it's just me. It's difficult to do this stuff when it's just you. It is so hard. I was talking about this with somebody earlier today, the importance of, the power of this community that we have. Because it is almost impossible for you to come through the dojo for any amount of time and leave feeling anything less than awesome, because we kind of pump each other up. It's like getting your batteries charged. And even if you don't do anything, but you just sit and watch and you're just kind of in the environment, we're all here. This person I was talking to before was talking about this from kind of an evolutionary standpoint, where we evolved to try to fit in. And it's something that we do very naturally as human beings, because if you didn't fit in way back when, your tribe would kick you out and then you die because you get eaten by a lion or something. So you got to fit into whatever it is that you are in. And this is why when we spend a lot of time around people who are kind of always dragging us down, we get dragged down. And if we're spending time with people who are really, bringing us up, we end up doing that. So the dojo is a great place in that way. It should usually, if not always, bring you up to a higher place. And you cannot guarantee that the dojo is always going to be in your life. You cannot guarantee that, hey, I need to take a break because I'm moving, or I'm, super sick, or whatever it is. I can't be here. So how do I deal with that? I would say that if you wait until that has happened, you're kind of planning for the fire as your house is burning down. So try to create great habits beforehand. So meditation at home as an example, stretching at home, practicing, if you have forms, practicing forms, but actually create a regular home practice. And even if it is not a physical practice, it's something that I'm doing on the regular that is taking the spirit of the dojo out with me. And I mean, this is something that is very consistent. It's something that I don't slide on. So I stretch every single day at the same time, or I meditate every single day at the same time, or I'm reading some kind of an inspirational book, maybe something from the dojo, or something that's in the same kind of spirit. It's the way that I have maybe a set time that I have a conversation with somebody, or I call my mom and have a conversation with her from this place of just listening and witnessing. It's something that I do consistently, and I make that a habit while I'm at the dojo, so that when I leave, I already have that stuff in place. And this is what I ended up with when I moved here and I had nobody to practice with. I didn't have that same kind of schedule, but I kept what I could. I wasn't going to class, but I would practice forms. I practiced forms at the same time every day, meditated at the same time every day. And I'm kind of going about my day and my life, bringing as much of my practice as I can into it. And that makes it much easier to deal with not being able to be here. It allows you to bring that stuff. It's basically like I've taken the dojo and I've insulated myself with these little pockets of it, and the rest of my, even if it's just like the physical existence, it's important to tie, physical places in your life to your practice. So every time you're there, every time you see it, that reminds you, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And I think that it's going to be super powerful to have, those physical places and those consistent practices, whatever it is that you're doing. And then it's going to just be a natural part of who you are. And once it is something that you're doing every day, even if you go somewhere else, you move somewhere else, you're on vacation for a week or a month in some other country or some other state, you still have that. you know that it's a part of you when, like me, you start to feel like you're going insane when you haven't practiced. For a couple of days, I start doing chin-a on my family when we're on trips. They don't like taking trips with me very much anymore. But I start to go stir crazy when I haven't done it. And that's my reminder, okay, I need to practice. I will go outside and leave my family alone and practice Tai Chi. I will go meditate wherever I can. And it's not going to be the same. It's never going to be, as perfect as you want it to be if you can't actually come to the dojo, but it can be at least a flavor of it. And then you create your own practice to the best of your ability. So I'm way past time, so we're going to sit and meditate now. Sit comfortably.